Hello, you're listening to the IoT Weekly Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode number 31 of the IoT Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Gearforge Software. Can you believe it's episode 31?
No, it's
Pretty high
crazy.
number. Yeah, what? That's amazing. So my name is Matthew and I'm joined by my co-hosts and good friends, Cliff and Zeineb. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, Matthew.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, lackluster there. Howdy, Matthew.
Hey guys.
I should be more excited. It's like, hello.
Yes.
We're on the air. You did realize that, right?
Did you press start already? Okay.
I did, yes. So, what have you guys been up to? Zeineb, let's start with you today.
Oh no, this is when I talk too much.
That's
To keep it brief, I guess the highlight of my week has been 5-star hotel pillows, and I didn't have to pay. So I
Wow.
sadly didn't get to sleep that often, but those are the softest pillows ever, and you get to hang out with the U.S. ambassador. So
That's
thank
awesome.
you, IREX. Thank you, IREX, for doing this for me.
Nice
very
job.
cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Was it like chocolates on your pillow, or?
No, but they had Tunisian sweets, and we like nuts in our sweets, so it was a really pretty box on the table, and I'm just every step I'm like, this scholarship is so amazing.
Nice.
That is so cool.
It has been wonderful.
That's great. Well, Cliff, what about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I am knee deep in Django, Python, and puppies. So Python and Django, of course, as I've said before, it's quite the difference between a C-based scenario. So I'm finally getting used to putting a colon after my if and else if and statements. That's probably one of the hardest things to do. And not using the semicolon. That's just a struggle.
No parentheses around the
Well, I still,
conditionals.
yeah, I still do parentheses. I realized the other day you don't have to. I've just been doing them, and it lets me. So I don't even think about it. It's like, oh, why wouldn't you put a parenthesis around your if statement? I know you think it's funny, Matthew, but it's definitely different.
It is for sure.
And for those that don't know, we are fostering 7 puppies and the mama. So it came from a shelter. We're doing the fostering right now. And I've got to say, realistically, it's my wife, Heather, that is just a saint. She is an amazing person watching these puppies. And she's there 4 or 5 times a day, like feeding them and helping out, cleaning up. It's just crazy. But I'm telling you now, Matthew, if you've ever got a bad day or just had a rough day at the office, you come home and put 2 of these puppies on your lap and let them just lick your face. It just turns things right around.
Oh, I bet it does. That's so cool.
Yeah, just the coolest thing.
I feel like we should show them the puppies at this point.
I'll have to get some pictures. I've got a few videos, but I'll take some more pictures this weekend and get them up here.
Yeah, we should put them on Twitter.
Yep, I'll get a bunch of photos in, Zeineb, and you just post them on Twitter. How's that sound?
That would be awesome.
Yeah, we've named them, so each one has a name now. There's like Bruiser and Chewy and Baby.
I figured the names were going to be
Kyrie and Bosk and and R2.
I see a
Is there
theme.
two?
Yeah, well, I only named one. I named Chewy.
Oh.
But one of my son named one R2, and then his friend named one Bosk. So,
Gotcha.
Yep.
I was hoping there would be R2D2 in there, but next time.
No, just R2. Just R2.
No D2.
No D2. Just R2.
Yeah.
I kind of figured that you would have it like they would be named 0, 1, 2.
You'd think it'd be easier to keep track of them. So, yeah, I'll get pictures of each one, Zeineb, so you can put them on Twitter. So that's really what I've been focused on. And then Matthew, you've had a great view. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so the only view from my window is Vue.js right now. I am
Oh man.
literally neck deep in a giant Vue.js project, and that has been my primary focus. So
Good times.
yeah, woohoo! Yeah, it's a great framework. I've been using it for a while. I love it. It's interesting because I've been running into quite a few people who are either asking about it or are using it. So just yeah, it's interesting to kind of see it's maybe less known than Angular or React.js, and interesting to see it kind of growing and taking on a life of its own. So
Sure.
very popular in China, apparently.
Well, that's
Huh.
good.
So Zeineb, do we have any feedback this week?
Well, no. I guess it's been kind of like a nice, lazy summer week. But if you have a feedback, and by the way, big thank you to all of our Twitter followers, you can always shoot us a message on Twitter at Gearforge IoT or an email at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com. I always slip when I say that.
Yeah, it's a tongue twister.
I get
Yeah,
it.
but we definitely welcome all feedback, and we'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, we would absolutely love to get any messages, questions, comments, recipes, quotes, you name it. Send it to us. We'd love to hear from you. And Cliff, it's time for a word from our show sponsor.
It sure is, Matthew. So the sponsor for the show today is Gearforge Software. So Gearforge Software is an IoT consultant that works with mid-sized companies that are ready to make their companies smart. If you're looking for a partner that will live, eat, and breathe your project, then look no further than Gearforge Software. You can learn more at gearforgesoftware.com.
Cliff, I only have one thing to say.
Yeah.
Neck deep in Vue.js.
So you're saying that you're living, eating, and breathing your project right now, Matthew?
I can think of nothing else.
So when you go to bed at night, you're not dreaming of puppies. You're dreaming of
no.
the next line of code.
I'm dreaming of Vue single file components
Yes.
permeating my brain.
Oh.
I get it. Trust me. I so get it.
So, guys, we're really lucky today to have one of our former guests back for another interview. Frank Mong from Helium is here today, and I think it'll be a great talk. Basically, we've got a bunch of new product stuff that they're launching here shortly, and he wanted to come on the show again and give listeners an update. So, let's cut over to Frank.
Sounds good, Matthew.
Today, we're thrilled to chat with Frank Mong, Chief Operating Officer from Helium. And Helium is a company we've been really interested in here at Gearforge Software. And it's their mission to make it easier to build connected devices. So Frank, welcome back.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. It's always great to be with Gearforge and the gang. So thanks, man. We're super honored and thankful to be able to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, and it's fantastic stuff. So it's exciting news that you're bringing us today, I think, about some new product stuff.
For sure. Last time we talked, it was just a couple of months or a month before some big announcements that we've made. And since then, we've gone public with what Helium is doing and some of the advances we're making in the world of IoT. I'd love to share that with you guys.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear more about it. So for those of our listeners who didn't listen to episode 21, shame on you. Go back and do that now. But that was the last time that Frank was on the show. And Frank, do you mind giving a quick intro again for
Sure.
those of our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with who you are?
Happy to. So Helium's a company that's founded in 2013 by Sean Fanning of Napster and Amir Helium. And we're backed by venture capital in Silicon Valley. Most recently, we raised around with Google Ventures, and we're backed by Khosla Ventures, First Mark, and Mark Benioff. So we got a nice group of folks really supporting us and believing in our cause. The mission of the company is to build the world's first decentralized machine network. And we're doing that because we think there's a big problem with IoT. We think IoT has failed to meet expectations. We should be living in the world of the Jetsons, where machines are helping humans and making our lives better and improving the things that we want to do every day. And instead, we think that we're living in the world of the Flintstones. We're just not there. We're not where we should be. And a lot of the problems are related to just, we think, confusing amount of protocols and transports. There's too many vendor lock-in and proprietary systems out there. No one knows who owns the data. And lastly, I think it's incredibly hard to build hardware. It's just very difficult to roll out new infrastructure. And so Helium's come up with a great idea of doing that by decentralizing it and getting everyone involved, getting the community, individuals, enterprises. We think that we've come up with a way that all of us can build a new network together.
Yeah, I think that's terrific. And in our last interview, we went into quite a bit of depth on all the cool stuff that Helium's been doing. Very impressive, including security and all of that. But today you've got some new stuff coming out.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's exciting?
Yeah, so I mentioned the decentralized machine network. That's a new concept. It's what we think is going to make IoT innovate. What we think is going to fulfill the promise of building a network that allows devices, machines, sensors to connect automatically. And one of the first things we're doing is we're open sourcing everything we're making. So we're building a new gateway. This new gateway not only will have 6 to 20 miles of range on radio frequency, that's RF, and that supports different open spectrum of RF across the world. Not only do we have increased range, but on the sensor side, on the radio module side, the battery life is going to be improved greatly. We're talking 3 years, 6 years, depending on its usage. And lastly, we built a physical blockchain and created our own blockchain that's embedded in our wireless gateway. So you can think of our wireless gateway as an IoT hotspot, right? It's a radio wave hotspot. And this thing now has a blockchain that's embedded in it. And we think that the combination of the three really helps us to incentivize a side of the market to become hosts. So what we're trying to do is essentially shortcut or cheat the system of building a network. We're not AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile where we have billions of dollars to build new infrastructure. But by placing a blockchain in our gateway, we think that we can incentivize individuals to do this with us. People that want to participate and join our movement can buy a gateway from us and basically roll it out in their home. Essentially, it's like a home device. Plug it in, and they can start providing a hotspot, and they can earn tokens by mining our blockchain. And of course, they can also earn tokens by transporting data for sensors back to the owners of the sensors. So we're trying to create an incentive scheme to solve the cold start problem. And we think that blockchain is that key feature there.
There is a lot you just talked about here.
Yeah.
So I know Cliff and I want to ask you a bunch of questions about the blockchain, but I want to back up for 1 second because I heard you say something that is a real hot button for me, and that is you are open sourcing.
Yes.
That is so awesome, Frank. That is just music to my ears. I'm a big fan of open source in the technology realm. Just makes sense, and I think that's a huge move for Helium.
Yeah, I got to share this with the world because I think there's a story behind this, which is I think it's fairly practical. But for folks that have been in IoT and have been looking at long range, low power devices like LP-WAN. We as a company, we're trying to solve this problem. How do you build a network that supports really long range, has low power? What's out there? There's other things out there, right? You guys have heard of LoRa, I'm sure. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what we did was we actually sat down with the guys from LoRa. LoRa is an alliance that claims to be open source, but it's owned by a company called Symtech. They're a chip company. And they make chips. They make chips of all kinds, not just radio chips, but they have other ASICs that they build. And so we sat down and said, look, we want to build a network. We love your chips, right? LoRa's got pretty good technology. Like to use it. And they said, great. There's a set cost on the BOM. And we said, oh, by the way, we noticed that in one of your chips, your radios, there's a GPS capability. And they say, oh yeah, that's right. Well, what's the cost of that? Oh, there's no additional fees for that, except unless you're hosting the gateway, then there's a royalty fee. I'm like, well, what do you mean royalty? Isn't this open source? Well, yeah, it's open source until you hit the certain features. Now you got to pay us a royalty. So we're like, okay, well, here comes the claw. The claw wants some money, and they told us some ridiculous amounts of money. There's a flat fee you have to pay up front, and then there's continuous royalties ongoing on an annual basis, and that is what really set us off. It totally, we just thought, hey, that's not right. If you're not open source, then just don't say it. If you're going to be open source, then be open source. Don't hide things like that. So that's what set us off when you said, you know what, forget it. We're going to go build this ourselves, and we're going to use off-the-shelf technology, like chips from TI, from Atmel, from analog devices, anywhere. We'll use any chip that's completely off the shelf, open standards based, no hidden fees or licensing fees or royalty fees. And it's thanks to Laura, we're off and running now.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
So Frank, this is Cliff here.
Yeah.
I think, did you say 6 to 20 miles? Is that right?
Yeah. So on the radio side, because what we're doing is on the gateway itself, we've deployed a SDR, software-defined radio, and that one of the things we're playing with is in the new gateway is having the capacity to support up to 320 channels of RF. And what that means is getting extremely good at channel hopping and creating narrow bands. But the downside of that, so the sort of the advantage of doing that is we're able to figure out how to, not avoid, but bypass interference, get around buildings, go through concrete, and get really long range, right? In those miles of range. The downside to that, with so many channels, is that we're not going to be able to support a lot of bandwidth, right? This is not something you use to watch YouTube or Netflix. We're not trying to replace your cell phone or anything like that. But what we can do is provide enough bandwidth and transport to get the signal across from machines and devices, right? So if you want a temperature reading, you want a CO2 reading, or you want to get some status back, and you want to do over-the-air updates, we can, depending on how far you are, we can transport in bursts of like 300 bytes to 300, 300K. 300 kilobytes. So
depending on distance does have some impact on that.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So if you're standing next to the hotspot, you'll get that 300 kilobytes sustained. But if you're like 6 miles out, it's likely you're going to drop down to 300 bytes, and that would be a worst case scenario. But you're going to go through trees and buildings, and those going to get.
And if you're channel hopping, is there a certain time frame you gotta? I assume you broadcast, then you wait for the gateway to pick it up, right?
Yeah. So the broadcasting happens at the sensor side. So sensor broadcasts, and our gateways will receive that or hear it ideally. And the channel hopping is just our ability to swap channels. And I think SEC in the U.S. Sorry, not the SEC, FCC in the U.S. has specifications on how long you're allowed to occupy a channel on an open frequency.
Sure.
So,
okay. No, that sounds great. So, I mean, what type of, so if I'm broadcasting as a sensor, I mean, if I wanted to push, let's say every minute, is that possible then?
Yes, yeah, it is. But if you're pushing every minute, that's gonna, the drawback on that would just be power, right? So if you're operating on a double A battery or cell coin battery, you have to account for how much battery power that's going to take.
But and I'll bring up another point. In a lot of cases that we're seeing, Frank, is it might be a location in the middle of nowhere. Like you can't. I mean, you can drive there, but there's nothing else around there. You're not getting internet, and the closest internet might be 6 miles away.
That's right. And so the idea would be this: that you can use one of our gateways at the hotspot point 6 miles away. It can pick up those edge signals of the edge device or the edge compute. And what we would do is our gateway on the one hand would hear the radio frequency and backhaul that for you using whatever broadband or cell that's available.
How does then do you have any concept with regards to, let's say, overlapping gateways, since it sounds
Yeah.
like you can have multiple folks in the same city, right?
Oh, absolutely. The idea is, and this has implications to our blockchain. So, um, if folks are familiar with blockchain, people mostly know Bitcoin and Ethereum. In the world of Bitcoin and Ethereum, there's something called proof of work. Proof of work in their case is hashing, rehashing, providing anonymous transactions. What we're doing is we're actually creating a new blockchain with a new proof, a proof of coverage. And the proof of coverage is established via a GPS chip that's in the gateway, proving its geolocation. But that's not good enough. We have to prevent Sybil attacks and spoofing. And so what we've created using the Honey Badger Byzantine fault tolerance algorithm for a consensus methodology is that there will be consensus groups that are randomly formed with a challenger that will challenge that group. And you have to prove that you are where you are. So this is where the uniqueness of our algorithm comes in. And this whole process is automated. It's on board on the gateway itself, where this will happen every 30 minutes. So the ideal situation, nothing's ideal, but the ideal situation is that your gateway is within a community of gateways that's within a block or 2 blocks, or even up to a mile away. And what that does is allows your gateway to actually speak to another gateway so that they can participate in a consensus group. And that's very important, because that allows the owner of the gateway to mine tokens.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So does the owner of the gateway then end up making money off of the mining of the tokens? I'm just asking because it just kind of brings up that question, right?
That's a great question. That's a logical question. That's the first thing you would want to know. And so, yes. So the answer is yes. So if you, for example, buy a gateway from Helium, we are going to sell these for $495. So you're going to buy the gateway, you're going to put it in your house, plug it in, put it by the window, and it just so happens that there are 5 or 6 others within, let's say, a mile or 2 of your gateway. What's going to happen is that gateway will end up being selected randomly to be part of a consensus group, and every time it fulfills its duty of either proving that it's where it's located, or it's proving that someone else is where they are located, they're going to build a block that's called proof of coverage. And as soon as you build a block, the byproduct of that is you earn a token. The reward essentially for the work is a token, and we're calling this a Helium token. And that Helium token will now be deposited in the owner's wallet, and that wallet sits in the cloud in their interface to Helium. And so what they can do over time is they can collect these tokens, and ideally, there will be an exchange that will allow you to exchange those tokens for fiat currency, whatever it may be. So this is good in the sense that if you're not into crypto today, you don't know how to get involved into Bitcoin and Ethereum, you're interested and you want to get involved, a really easy way to do it is to buy a gateway and become essentially a service provider, become a Helium network provider. You'll start to earn tokens.
Sure. Could you buy more than one gateway to set them up in different locations, like
Absolutely.
one person?
Sure, absolutely. We're working with a number of companies, not just individuals, but companies like our partners at WeWork and Capgemini.
Yep.
They're going to put gateways in their office. McKinsey's going to do it as well. So they're psyched. They're ready to go. They want to try it and see this work.
And so then how, let's say you're a sensor or an edge device, is there a cost to use the gateways, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's purely market driven. And so what we think will happen is, the sensor itself, the hardware module has a cost. We think that's going to be about, less than $1 in volumes. And what you need to do is, if you're a sensor, if you have an edge compute device, and we believe that most users of this network are going to be enterprises, because we're engaged in building that side of the market. And in doing so, we're working with enterprises and working on figuring out how they can solve their problems. A lot of their problems are related to getting edge compute to work in remote locations, like package tracking and valuable asset tracking, where cellular doesn't make sense because it just draws too much power. Using the Helium radio makes a lot more sense to them. They would need a network to connect to. And so they would pay a token or whatever the host of the network wants to charge. And so Cliff, if you had a gateway and, I'm a company called like Nestle, and I want to track one of my food assets or food crates that's passing by your house or your office, and I want to send a signal back saying that, hey, the products in this container are now at 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Could you send that for me? And your gateway is going to say, great, I'll do it for you for 1 helium token. And my sensor will say, great, Nestle's authorized me to pay a token. And that's happening in the cloud. So there will be a cloud infrastructure in the back end that we're hosting, or Nestle's hosting, and it's offering your wallet that token. And then you perform the work, you'll earn a token for that. So that's how that will work.
That just sounds amazing.
Yeah. So part of the challenge for Helium in this process and what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a two-sided marketplace, right? We're trying to create a market of gateway hosters, which we think are people like you and me, perhaps people that are interested in cryptocurrency and crypto mining. And on the other side of the marketplace, it's really, getting enterprises and understanding what kind of problems they have, what use cases they have, helping them solve those problems using the Helium network.
Sure. So how, as far as form factor is considered here, is this similar to the size of your previous chip as far as the edge sensor, as far as the device, or is this smaller, bigger? What's the size?
Yeah, so the edge sensor will likely be the size of like our thumbnails. So our goal is to get the radio, some of the core sensors we've seen that people want to use, and essentially put in an SoC of some type. And hope, our aim is to get that down to the size of our thumbnails, if not smaller.
Wow.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Question with regards to when this is available. I mean, is this coming out tomorrow or next week, or is this more the fall, or when do you?
Yeah, great.
When can
question.
people start getting a hold of it?
So we're going to roll this thing out in 3 phases. Phase 1 is going to be called Friends and Family. So we've got currently about 150 friends and family members waiting for a gateway to allow us to roll out. Think of it as like alpha, so that we can roll out our initial run of the boards, run of the gateways. We've already built 15 gateways. We're doing a lot of Q&A on it. We have some changes we want to make. Good news is everything's running and working, so we're super happy about that. But there's still some errors that are popping up on the hardware side. So we're going to go respin a board. So we'll respin a board. Next spin will be about 150. And so I expect that we should be able to get our initial gateways out into the hands of our friends and family probably before October 31st is my guess. And once that is rolled out, what you'll see is Helium will have a network that's up and running, fingers crossed, right? Providing coverage probably across 5 cities in the US. Certainly San Francisco Bay Area, so that's San Francisco, San Jose, and everything in between, Palo Alto and so forth, Oakland, California. And then we think that things are looking pretty good for New York City, for Boston. We've got some decent coverage maybe in Austin, Texas, and Seattle. So that's probably where our current friends and family is coming in play. And then what we're going to do is provide an enterprise preview. And this is getting people that want to now use the network, getting them up and running probably before Thanksgiving. And so this will allow us to again test the network, test the edge compute devices, make sure that use cases are capable of running on this, especially on the POC level. And then by the end of the year, we should be able to ship our first 5,000 units to the public. And so that we have a wait list. So if anyone that's listening wants to get involved, we have a wait list right now on our website, helium.com. You can sign up for a wait list. To get on the wait list, you can sign up for a newsletter and so forth, and you can get updated on when this stuff's available. But we're actually limited on how many we can produce for the first 5,000 units because we've basically bought out all the radio chips we can get our hands on, and that's all we could get was 5,000.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
That is great. Hey, question is, so
Yeah.
if let's say I've got one of the Helium kind of first family chips, are those still going to
Sure.
be, can I still use that right now?
I mean, it still works. It's not compatible with our new tech because of the modulation of the radio waves is changing. We're increasing the range. So that's one incompatibility, and the other is the blockchain. You just won't be able to participate in the consensus without the blockchain.
So
So
would you recommend upgrading once the chipsets come out and you can kind of go that path?
I think so. It again depends on the application. And we have a lot of customers actually on our current generation tech. If it's for, let's call it, smart building applications, or it's for contained environments, our current technology works incredibly well. If they want to, if they're trying to solve problems that relate to asset tracking that requires geolocation, they're going to want to upgrade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. We were just talking about some of the geolocation, Frank, and really saying, hey, trying to leverage the sensors having to go all the way out and then come back from a geolocation standpoint doesn't make sense from a battery aspect. So
Right.
that's really interesting as far as how you're going to be validating each one of
Right.
these like every 30 minutes. That's just amazing.
Yeah, what we try to do is to solve that battery problem is to move a lot of the compute required for GPS off the edge compute and onto the gateway. And the gateway is going to be plugged in, so the gateway will have power. The gateway just needs to have line of sight to the sky to get satellite signals and geolocation. And now becomes, the higher the density of gateways, the higher the accuracy of your sensor. So, because what we could do is then do triangulation via the gateway based on time delay of the radio signals, and then your sensor itself wouldn't have the burden of that GPS chip on board. So your battery life would increase just amazingly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That GPS and cell just eats up so much power.
Yeah, entirely.
Yeah.
All right, Matthew, you got some questions here? I know I've kind of grabbed a few of these. Sorry, bud.
No, it sounds great. Frank, it looks like an exciting release. Man, a huge feature set here.
Yeah, thank
you. Really some. Helium. Sounds like Helium is really taking this in a different direction too.
Yeah, I think some of the key things we wanted to solve was that battery problem on the edge and the range. But I think the killer use case for us, given some of the folks we've been talking to on the enterprise side, we're talking to one of the largest pet distribution companies in the world. They see massive application for what we're trying to do here, not just for dog tracking and tracking pets and cats and so forth, but think of it as like the entire smart pet environment and experience. Everything from automatic dog feeding and cat food dispensers to tracking collars and whatever. But with what we're doing here, they see a huge amount of consolidation application that can just make it super easy for consumers. It's just really difficult right now for folks to get things to work. Forget about setting up a baby monitor or whatever, but things just don't seem to work when you walk outside of the house, right? It just gets really complicated.
Yeah.
So we're trying to simplify that. And the fact that we're open sourcing all of this means that the design of our boards, the design of our modules, the firmware, the layouts, the software for the hardware itself is open to everyone. The one thing that the way we're going to make money, sometimes people ask, well, how's Helium going to make money on this, right? Well, we think there's certainly our expertise in the form of that Linux model, Red Hat Linux model. Mm-hmm. There's value for Helium, but ultimately, what we think about is, getting everyone here listening to us to build a network with us. There's no tax on that. There's no hidden cost. The gateway costs that we're charging is what it costs us to build the gateway in the United States at low volumes, right? So we're not shipping this overseas to build today. Certainly, someone can take it and go do that and make it cheaper, which is our hope. Someone will do that. But once someone buys the gateway, they own it. Helium now has nothing to do with that. They take it, they own it. The blockchain is public. It's not owned by Helium anymore once we release this. So it's a living network, right, that hopefully grows. And we have to do everything we can to help it grow. And so on the other side of the market, it's getting people to use this thing. And not just the sensor side, the compute side, but for enterprises, it's all about the management, orchestration, the workflow, and the updating over time and risk management of that entire IoT infrastructure. And that's where Helium is going to make money. So we've got a cloud software as a service platform that enterprises can use to manage millions and millions of these devices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think by open sourcing the technology, you've basically given the opportunity for others to sort of contribute to the ecosystem,
right?
Which I think it's a good I think it's a good plan, and that coupled with the idea that there are sort of other ways to build, a community, right, of users.
That's right.
This with the blockchain angle. I think it's a recipe for success.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, if folks are interested in looking at what we've already open sourced, they're welcome to check it out on GitHub. So we have a GitHub repo. They can see the work that we're doing. We continuously will update it with new code, new releases. So I definitely welcome that. And if anyone's interested in talking to us, just go to a website. You'll find us. We have a community Slack channel as well, chat.helium.com. So they can start talking to us on the tech. We have a lot of developers already that's working with us. So that might be interesting for some folks that's listening.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I definitely really appreciate you coming on the show, Frank, and telling us about these new product offerings. I think this is super exciting. If there's any sort of parting message that you want to leave with the users or with the listeners, rather, what would that be?
Yeah, I think this is very game changing. What we're trying to do is build a new network. Essentially, today it's a network that connects machines and devices, which means there'll be applications that don't exist that will exist if this network can run. And we can't do this alone. Helium is not capable of building a network on its own. We're going to make this open source. We need everyone to join us and build it together. And this will truly be a decentralized network. And I think over time, this will ultimately challenge the incumbents like the big telcos out there, where they're controlling our ability to innovate. They're controlling our ability to have access. I don't think that's right. I think that we should control our ability to access. We should control the kind of data we want to share and the kind of data we don't want to share. And so with this decentralized network, I think it's important for everyone to understand it's private, it's secured, it's encrypted, and having a blockchain that's open and public means that it's transparent, it's immutable, right? It's fairness for everyone. So I think this is going to be game changing from an IoT perspective, but also game changing from a cryptocurrency blockchain perspective. In that we're trying to keep things low power, very efficient, fair mining. And so if you're interested, check it out, helium.com. Get on the wait list, sign up for our newsletter, and join the movement.
All right, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Frank. We really appreciate you coming on the show today and talking about all this great new stuff.
Thank
Can't
you
wait
very
to
much,
talk
Matt.
to you. Yeah, see what's coming up next.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
So long. All right. Well, that was an awesome interview. Thanks again to Frank for coming on the show and telling us all about all the great stuff that's coming up for Helium.
I do love talking. Yeah, I love talking with Frank. I cannot wait until this comes out so we can play a little bit.
Well, and it really sounds like they're doing some innovative stuff. I mean, not just on I guess it's all kind of on the hardware side, but what I mean is they're not just releasing new hardware, right? They're releasing kind of a new concept of how to make a distributed network popular, I guess, with this distributed system that they're creating, right? And the incentives. So it'll be interesting to see how that catches on.
Well, and I'm really curious, well, not so much curious, but one of the things we've talked about before, Matthew, is we always felt like blockchain was being forced in many cases.
Yeah.
This seems like a pretty good fit for blockchain in this instance.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like that as as an owner of a gateway, I'm incentivized basically, right?
Hmm.
Because now there's a reason for me. It's not, I'm not just an owner of a piece of hardware, but I'm incentivized to kind of get to talk about it and get other people interested. And that just helps build the network, and to participate in this whole distributed system, right? That I think I could see how companies might be able to make some money just by by allowing others to use the hardware that they already need to operate their business, right? So
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So
yeah, it's pretty
I
cool.
and I just Frank is always just such a great guest. Really appreciate him coming on the show. Just loved having him.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's got a really good way of explaining what they've got going on. So
He does, and very, very knowledgeable, which I enjoy talking with him. So great guy.
absolutely, yeah, and hopefully we'll have him back on again in the future the next time Helium iterates. So.
Most definitely.
All right. So if you have any feedback, you can shoot us a message at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com, or you can find us on Twitter. And by us, I really mean Zeineb, at Gearforge IoT. And we would love to hear from you. Send us whatever you got, and that would be great. So that wraps things up. You guys have anything fun for the weekend? Cliff, how about you?
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, Matthew, but it's going to be hot, like really hot here in Minnesota.
Yeah. It feels like we've had a really hot summer, actually.
I know, but normally we don't get anything till August, and I think it's going to be like another 100-degree weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
Close to it, at least in heat index. So I'm thinking there'll probably be something with puppies. I know Heather would like to see if we can't figure out a way maybe to get the puppies upstairs. They're currently in our basement just because we've got other dogs. We're trying to keep them separated.
Mm-hmm.
So probably see if we can't figure out something upstairs. And then maybe I'll try to talk her into doing a float down this weekend. So we live on the Mississippi River. So we jump in the river a couple miles up, and we literally just float down and drink alcohol on our way down back to our house.
Oh, so you drive up river?
Yeah, so we
Is that how it
take my
works?
truck, we drive up river a little ways to a park, we take our inner tubes and jump into the river, and then we'll float down. And then the key part is making sure you're on the right side of the river when you get to our house, because otherwise you're going to be another half-mile down river trying to come back up.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
Well, and we had so much rain that it's pretty high right now too.
Interesting. So it's called river living, huh?
Yeah, river living. Yes, apparently that's a thing. But yep, so that's fingers crossed. I would love to do a float down. It's going to be warm this weekend.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty jealous.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Zeineb, come on back. You can do a float down with us. Matthew, what are you doing?
I haven't thought that far ahead yet. but I do, in the back of my head, I do have the idea, like this inkling, that I should probably go out and buy a steak and grill it up.
Oh, that sounds good. What kind of
doesn't
steak?
it? Well, I don't know. Whatever they've got that's large. The biggest steak you've got.
Oh, we would take the biggest one you've got.
Yeah. Yeah, doesn't that sound good? Like
It does sound good.
steak and maybe steam up some Brussels sprouts or something. And,
Oh, that sounds
haven't had
delicious.
steak in years.
and we talked about that when you were here, that you cannot leave the U.S. without having a steak while you're here. Apparently,
And
you
I
didn't follow
did.
instructions.
Yeah. My apologies for that. I was a little too busy having bubble tea.
Bubble tea, yes.
Worth it.
They opened a bubble tea place just right down the road from me now.
Well,
So
some of the
finally.
major chains are now carrying bubble tea, Matthew.
Really, it's catching on.
It is.
Oh, that's funny. So, Zeineb, what does your weekend look like?
It looks like I might be also doing a steak.
Nice.
Potentially. I mean,
That-
I was also thinking of what can I do to kind of replicate a float down, but I wouldn't want to start floating down the Mediterranean all the way to Sicily.
That's a bad idea. Really
There's-
bad idea.
Make sure that you're
it's-
on the right side of the Mediterranean when you get there.
Yeah. And that sounds like international incident written all over this thing.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like float your way to Italy. Don't float your way to France.
Oh, look, Zeineb, she's in the news.
Making her way down in an inner tube to France, like, bonjour! But no, it's just basically a barbecue party with a bunch of friends who are also leaving to the US, so you might meet them next year. And,
Cool.
having a good time meeting new people.
Nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Sounds great. And yeah, it sounds like there are lots of owls in your garden, is what I hear.
Yes, there's a lot of everything in my garden, including bananas.
And
Yes.
so those that may not know, so Zeineb is currently broadcasting from Tunisia. So what time is it in Tunisia right now? Or how far ahead, I should say, are you from Minnesota time?
See, I'd love to say that I have the time, but I have it on Minnesotan time, so I'm guessing
So well, I think you said you're what, 6 hours ahead of Minnesota?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's 6 p.m. right now, actually. There, I remember.
Before we started recording the podcast, Zeineb had her window open, and there were lots of hoots coming from the garden from apparently a whole bunch of owls.
It's either owls or it's the train.
I love it. That's great. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening. We hope you'll join us again for next week's show, which will be awesome, by the way. I don't know what it's going to be about, but I can tell you right now, it'll be awesome.
Well, it's after the 4th of July, so lots of fireworks.
Oh, yeah, the 4th of July is a thing.
Yeah, here it is.
Totally a thing. Yeah.
You don't get the 4th off, Zeineb?
I just love every year on the 4th of July, I love watching the videos from the fire department warning people about firecracker safety.
Oh gosh.
Those are the best.
Well, did I tell you, Matthew, across the river from us, there's a guy, and he's a professional fireworker. I don't know if there's what the name is for that, but yeah, so he's been testing fireworks across the river from us in preparation for the 4th of July.
Wow, far out.
I'm getting the idea that if you get bored on the 4th of July, you could just float away to the wrong side of the river.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
We got way off track there. Sorry, Matthew.
Well, that's all right. So folks, we were just about to wrap up. And until next week, so long and be well. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.